Good morning, and welcome to Blissful Journey, where we explore the hidden psychology behind everyday habits and the quiet patterns that shape how we live. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone for the first time and within minutes you felt it? Something was off. Nothing dramatic. Nothing obvious. Just a subtle shift. A smile that looked correct, but not real. A tone that sounded friendly, but carried a tiny edge. A warmth that felt practiced. And then, days or weeks later, when the truth finally surfaced, you were not surprised. Because you already knew. If that sounds familiar, this video is for you. There is a specific kind of intelligence that rarely gets named. It does not show up on IQ tests. It is not the loud, obvious kind of smart. It is quiet. It is relational. It is built from attention. It is the ability to notice patterns in people. To sense emotional sequences. To track a person's mood shifts across time. To recognize the same dynamics repeating, in different faces, different rooms, different relationships. I call it emotional pattern intelligence. And if you have it, you probably do not feel gifted. You feel tired. Because when you can read people too well, you cannot unsee what you see. You walk into a room and your mind starts mapping the emotional climate automatically. You sense tension before anyone speaks. You detect avoidance before you have proof. You anticipate defensiveness before it happens. Sometimes it feels like intuition. Sometimes it feels like a curse. And here is the part most people miss. Emotional pattern intelligence is often built, not gifted. For many people, it develops when the nervous system learns that safety depends on prediction. When you grow up around unpredictable moods, emotional volatility, subtle threats, sudden criticism, or shifting rules, your brain adapts. You learn to notice micro signals, because missing them had consequences. So if you can read people too well, it may not be because you are overly sensitive. It may be because your mind became highly trained. In this video, we are going to break down 10 signs you have emotional pattern intelligence. Why it develops, how it affects your relationships, and how to keep the skill without letting it drain your life. As you listen, I want you to do one thing. Do not judge yourself. Just notice what resonates. Because once you see your pattern, you can change your pattern. Let us begin. Sign 1. You notice emotional shifts before anyone else does. Most people need obvious evidence. They need someone to raise their voice, slam a door, start crying, or say, "I am upset." But you pick it up earlier. You notice the pause that was half a beat too long. The sudden change in eye contact. The smile that appears too quickly. The laugh that sounds slightly forced. The way someone's shoulders tighten when a specific topic comes up. And you do not just notice it. You feel it. Your attention locks on, because your nervous system recognizes it as meaningful. This is emotional pattern intelligence at its most basic level. You sense a change in the pattern. Sign 2. You can predict the next scene in someone's behavior. There is a moment in certain conversations where you already know where it is going. Not because you are guessing, but because you have watched the sequence before. You know when someone is about to withdraw. You know when they are about to become defensive. You know when they are about to turn a small irritation into a larger conflict. You know when a compliment is about to become a subtle power move. You know when a calm person is about to explode. Because you recognize the buildup. It is like watching a familiar film. You know the next line before it is spoken. Because you are not tracking the words. You are tracking the emotional structure under the words. Sign 3. You can tell the difference between performance and authenticity. Some people are charismatic. Some people are polished. Some people are socially skilled. They know how to say the right thing. They know how to appear warm, confident, and impressive. Most people are drawn in by the presentation. But you notice the seams. You can tell when someone is saying the correct thing, because it is correct, not because they mean it. You can tell when empathy sounds scripted. You can tell when confidence feels like a costume. You can tell when a person is managing their image more than they are relating to you. You do not always call it out, but you feel the difference. And this can be isolating, because when everyone else is impressed, you feel disconnected. You are watching the mask. Everyone else is watching the smile. Sign 4. You read silence like a language. For many people, silence is empty. It is just quiet. For you, silence is full of information. You can feel the difference between thoughtful silence and avoidant silence. Between peaceful silence and punishing silence. Between someone processing and someone withholding. You can often tell what a person is trying not to say. Not because you are psychic, but because silence has patterns too. When someone goes quiet, you notice timing, posture, eye movement, breathing, and the emotional temperature in the space. And that is why mixed signals can feel especially draining to you. Because mixed signals are not mixed to you. They are conflict inside the other person. And you can feel it. Sign 5. You over-explain. Not because you talk too much, but because you are trying to prevent misunderstanding. This is one of the most misunderstood signs. A person with emotional pattern intelligence often learned that being misunderstood has consequences. Misunderstanding leads to conflict. Conflict leads to rejection. Rejection leads to instability. So you try to control the outcome by being extremely clear. You add context. You clarify your tone. You explain your intention. You repeat your meaning in different ways. You try to remove ambiguity. Not because you are weak, because your nervous system wants predictability. But here is the cost. The more you over-explain, the more you accidentally take responsibility for how other people interpret you. And that is a responsibility no one can carry forever. Sign 6. You feel responsible for the emotional temperature in the room. If you walk into a room, and there is tension, you do not just notice it. You carry it. You start adjusting. You become more careful, more polite, more quiet, or more entertaining, more helpful, more agreeable. You become a stabilizer, a buffer, a translator. You try to smooth the edges before they cut anyone. This is often a learned survival strategy. If you grew up in a home where one person's mood could change everything, you learned to regulate the room before it became unsafe. As an adult, that becomes a habit. You become the emotional thermostat. And it is exhausting. Sign 7. You spot manipulation early, but you still question yourself. This one is painful, because it combines two forces at once. You notice the tactic, the subtle guilt, the shifting blame, the strategic compliment, the sudden victim story timed perfectly to make you feel responsible. The way affection is given, and then withdrawn to create insecurity. You see the pattern. But then you hesitate. You wonder if you are being unfair. You wonder if you are reading too much into it. You wonder if you are the problem for noticing. And there is a reason for that. People who developed high emotional pattern sensitivity often also developed self-doubt, especially if their feelings were dismissed, mocked, or minimized in the past. When you spend years sensing what others deny, you learn to distrust your own perception. So you see the pattern, then you doubt the pattern, and that doubt keeps you in situations longer than you should stay. Sign 8. You are drawn to depth, but you often end up with people who want an audience, not intimacy. People with emotional pattern intelligence usually crave something real. They want honesty, consistency, emotional presence. They want relationships where words match behavior. But there is a trap. Some people are drawn to your depth because it benefits them. They like how you understand them. They like how you anticipate their moods. They like how you translate what they cannot articulate. They like how you make them feel seen. But they do not offer the same presence back. So you become the container, the listener, the interpreter, the emotional translator, the one who carries the emotional meaning. And slowly the relationship becomes one-sided. If this has happened to you, you are not alone. When you read people too well, you can accidentally create a dynamic where you do all the emotional work. Not because you chose it, but because you are capable of it. Sign 9. You feel other people's emotions in your body. This is not poetic language. Your body reacts. You feel tension as tightness in your chest. You feel anger as heat in your face. You feel conflict as restlessness in your stomach. You feel sadness as heaviness in your shoulders. And because you feel it physically, you respond to it. You may become hyper alert. You may become tired after social situations. You may need long recovery after being around intense people. You may feel drained, even if nothing bad happened, because your nervous system spent the entire time monitoring. This is why emotional pattern intelligence is not just cognitive. It is physiological. Your body is part of the radar. Sign 10. You are excellent at reading people, but not always excellent at knowing what you want. This is the sign that many people recognize last. When your attention is trained outward, you become skilled at understanding others, their motives, their moods, their needs, their emotional weather. But you can lose contact with your own internal signals. You can spend so much time analyzing the room that you forget to ask yourself basic questions. How do I feel right now? What do I need right now? Do I even want to be here? This is why people with emotional pattern intelligence often struggle with boundaries. They sense what others want and default to giving it, even when it costs them. They are not weak. They are over-adapted. Now let us step back. Why does this happen? Why do some people become emotional pattern readers, while others stay emotionally blind? In many cases, the answer is environment. If you grow up in a stable environment, you do not need to predict moods to feel safe. You can be present. You can trust what people say. You can assume consistency. You can relax into connection. But if you grow up in emotional unpredictability, your brain learns a different rule. Safety comes from anticipation. So you become sensitive to micro cues, because micro cues are early warning signals. You learn the sequence. The look before the criticism. The pause before the rage. The silence before the withdrawal. The sweetness before the guilt trip. The charm before the control. Your nervous system becomes a pattern detector. Because patterns help you survive. That is the origin of the skill. And it is a real skill. It can make you empathetic. It can make you socially intelligent. It can make you perceptive in ways that help you avoid danger. It can help you read a room, lead a team, support a friend, or see through dishonesty. But it also has a cost. Because if your brain is always reading patterns, you may never fully relax into a relationship. You may always be waiting for the shift. You may struggle with trust. Not because you are cynical, but because you have seen how quickly people can change. You might even feel disappointed in people more often than others do. Not because you are negative, but because you notice what they are doing before they admit it to themselves. So what do you do with this? How do you keep the intelligence without living in constant alertness? Here is the key. Emotional pattern intelligence is healthy when it is a tool. It becomes unhealthy when it becomes a lifestyle. A tool is something you can pick up and put down. A lifestyle is something you cannot turn off. So the goal is not to become less perceptive. The goal is to become more selective, more grounded, and more in control of your attention. Let me give you some principles that can change everything. Principle 1. Not every pattern requires action. This is one of the hardest lessons for highly perceptive people. You can notice something and not respond to it. You can sense tension and still stay calm. You can detect someone's mood shift and not rush to fix it. You can see a red flag and decide, quietly, that you will observe before you invest. Your perception is information. It is not an obligation. You are allowed to see what you see without becoming responsible for it. Principle 2. Stop negotiating with inconsistency. People with emotional pattern intelligence often get trapped in a specific loop. They see inconsistency. They sense it early. But they keep negotiating with it, hoping it will become clarity. Hoping the person will finally align. Hoping the next conversation will fix the pattern. But patterns do not change because you explain them. Patterns change because the person is willing to change them. If someone consistently makes you feel anxious, confused, or small, that is a pattern. And patterns matter more than promises. This does not mean you become harsh. It means you stop ignoring the evidence your nervous system has been collecting. Principle 3. Choose relationships where you do not have to monitor. The best relationships for a pattern reader are the ones where you do not need the skill. Where people communicate directly. Where their words match their behavior. Where you are not punished for asking questions. Where you are not forced to decode silence. Where you do not have to play emotional detective just to feel stable. If you only feel safe because you are constantly scanning, that is not safety. That is management. And management is not intimacy. Principle 4. Practice turning attention inward. If your attention is always trained outward, you need an internal anchor. Simple practices work, not complicated ones. Before you analyze someone else, pause and ask yourself one question. What am I feeling in my body right now? Then ask another. What do I need? This sounds basic, but it is powerful. Because it retrains the nervous system to prioritize your own signals, not just everyone else's. And over time, that changes your relationships, because you stop abandoning yourself in order to understand someone else. Principle 5. Use your intelligence to choose, not to tolerate. This is a major shift. A lot of perceptive people use their skill to endure. They think, I understand them, so I can handle it. I see why they are like this, so I should be patient. I can read their pain, so I should stay. But understanding is not the same as safety. Empathy is not a reason to accept harm. Your intelligence is meant to help you choose wisely, not to teach you how to tolerate the wrong environment. If your gift is that you see patterns, then respect the patterns you see. Now I want to name something that many people with emotional pattern intelligence struggle to admit. Sometimes your ability to read people becomes a kind of control. Not control in a manipulative way. Control in a survival way. If you can predict someone, you feel safer. If you can map their mood, you feel prepared. If you can anticipate their reaction, you feel protected. So you monitor. You interpret. You stay 2 steps ahead. And it works in the short term. But in the long term, it keeps you in a state of low-level tension, because you never fully rest. So part of healing this is learning a new form of safety. Not safety through prediction. Safety through boundaries. Safety through choice. Safety through leaving when the pattern is wrong. Safety through being around people who do not require decoding. And that brings us to the most important truth of this entire video. If you have emotional pattern intelligence, you are not broken. You are not dramatic. You are not too sensitive. You are skilled in a way most people do not understand. But you also deserve a life where you do not have to use that skill just to feel okay. You deserve relationships where you can rest. You deserve friendships where you do not have to interpret every pause. You deserve love that does not require constant translation. And if you are listening to this and realizing, this is me, I want you to hear this clearly. You are allowed to stop monitoring. You are allowed to stop doing emotional labor for everyone around you. You are allowed to choose peace over prediction. One more gentle note. Sometimes emotional pattern intelligence develops from experiences that left the nervous system on high alert. If you feel constantly on edge, if your body cannot relax, if you are always scanning for danger even in safe places, it might help to speak with a qualified professional who understands anxiety and trauma patterns. Not because something is wrong with you, but because you deserve support. Now, I want to ask you something. Which of these signs felt the most familiar to you? And when you read people too well, what is the hardest part? Is it the exhaustion? Is it the self-doubt, or is it the fact that you were right long before anyone else could see it? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more videos like this, exploring the psychology behind everyday behaviors, tell me what topic you want next. Because once you start seeing patterns, you start seeing the world differently. And sometimes, that is the beginning of finally seeing yourself clearly too.